Hi, everybody. I'm Rick DiClemente. Welcome to Astrology Unplugged. Tonight, we're doing some pretty neat stuff with astrology down deep. Sometimes we're light. Tonight's going to be one of the heaviest nights that we've ever had with astrology, and I'm really looking forward to it here on night number 337. And Diana's with us, even though we can't see her, but we're glad to have her. Welcome, everybody. We're going to be talking about how the planets come up through us. This is very, very, very important that you get this at least somewhat in your mind because people, no matter how hard people try, there's always a sense of thinking the planets are out there and I'm over here. And that's not how it works. And so, how does it work? Well, we're going to talk about that. One of the things I want you to realize is if you're one of these, I don't think Sigmund is, because Sigmund is an advanced meditation teacher. If you're one of these people walking around and you think you're here, and you think Rick is here, and there's Marcia, and if you think you end all be all is here, then you're in for a treat because that's what astrology disproves. And that's what's so fascinating by it. And one of the reasons, oh, bud, and that's one of the reasons that people need to take it more seriously because I'm going to be showing you how these planets work up through you. And tonight I'm going to take the planets out of order on purpose because I don't want to always follow them in order. And we're going to start the evening with the planet Uranus, just because Uranus is so intense and it can be wild, etc., etc. So I'm going to give you examples from each planet. I took a hunch today and I went out to Google and I typed into Google astrology, where are the, and it filled it in by itself, planets. Astrology, where are the planets? And up comes a list instantly of where all the planets are at this moment. So none of you have any excuses about where are the planets at. And oh, this one snuck up on me, and I didn't have an ephemeris, and I didn't use a program. Okay, so there's your answer every day. Astrology, where are the planets? And it will come up and tell you what degree and what sign. Now, when I talk about a planet hitting you, it's not a really good verb to use because it's really not true. But what I'm mainly talking about is a planet is opposite something of yours. A planet is at the same degree as something of yours, or planets at a right angle. There are other geometric angles that get involved, but they're lesser important, but they still can be worth looking at. So we're looking mainly conjunctions, oppositions, and squares. Okay. So if you look up and it says that Jupiter is at 10 Libra, then you in your mind got to go to 10 Aries to see if there's anything opposite, or 10 Cancer, or 10 Capricorn. So you're going to have to do a little bit of work when you're trying to decide if a planet is on me. So what I decided to do tonight, I was talking to myself because I realized when you're teaching, as I've been doing a long time, it's really important when you're teaching astrology to use astrodrama to draw to dramatize these planets, to talk as if they do. If Aries came in the room, what would he say? What would he sound like? If Aries left the room, what would it be like? If Pluto came in the room, what would it be like? And when you start doing that in early class, it really, really helps you because you got to get a feel for these guys. And that's what we're kind of doing, but I'm going to take it even a step further. Hello, Erica. Now we got our Hollywood squares, and Claudia's in the middle. Now we can continue. Okay, we say hi to Teresa, who's just back from Lourdes, and to John, who's just back climbing out of the Grand Canyon. And there she goes. Okay, now, the planets are not out there. I'm going to take a break for one moment. I'll be right back. But the planets are not sending you heebie-jeebie waves. They're not sending you magnetic waves. It certainly is not working by gravity. Look at Eris kicking our butt, who's really far away. 10,000. Is that 10,000? 900, 950 years, 500, 550 years for Eris to go around once. So it's not how close they are. It's quantum. The nature of the planet is the nature of the energy that's hitting you. And there's no more you can say about it. Nobody can explain it. But I'm starting with Uranus. So if Uranus is on you, and what I'm talking about, and this is one reason I keep repeating to you, you got to get used to how fast these planets move, how fast is your retrograde move, how long is it going to stay on you? It's like Uranus is going to stay on you about 2 years, whereas Eris is going to stay about 20 years. Pluto, about 2-3 years. Saturn, a couple months. You just have to get used to these periods and know them. So when Uranus comes into your life, all of a sudden, and I'm giving this to you from reports from my clients, and I've experienced them too, but these are validated by many, many clients. All of a sudden, your life gets hectic. You get kind of crazy. The common phrases I hear from people is, I'm coming out of my skin. I'm beside myself. Let's just imagine Uranian energy coming into the room. And I've seen it with many Aquarians I know. Don't take them near your copy machine, your PC, your printer. Don't. Because a high degree of chance that those things are just going to stop working. It's Uranian energy. Uranus is kind of crazy, fanatical, and it's not conducive to things going nice and smoothly. So it's very common for those things to happen. Next time you see your copier break down, look in the room and see if there's any Aquarians there. It's very common. Okay. When Uranus comes into the room, we're going to use that phrase. And you've all done pretty well understanding Uranus. What does Uranus want? We'll talk about where it's coming from, but what does Uranus want? Uranus wants you to update, wants you to get out of things that are stale. Hey, this restaurant's looked like this for 28 years. Let's break the walls down and make some interesting lights here. Make it look good, make it look neat. Boy, my life, I've been boring coming home every night to the same old TV programs. Let me do something different. Maybe I'll go country dancing or line dancing, or maybe I'll go take an art class or something. That's the Uranian impulse. It's to try something new, especially spontaneously. And I cannot tell you enough about how correct our Pittsburgh, not Father Robert, divorce. How Fred Rogers is the name I'm trying to think of, was trying to tell you that there's nobody like you. And that's really heavy duty statement. We all know that, but do we really know it? And Fred Rogers was always really pounding on that. He was very Piscean and he had a strong Aquarius in him, which is why he did what he did. So Aquarius doesn't come by to bother you, doesn't come by to disrupt you. It comes by to wake you up if you've been too much asleep. Now, Since Uranus is not out there, where is it? It's in here. So I'm going to repeat this story I told you. I had a woman come into me for several years. She was a rather down-to-earth Taurus. She came back to see me the next year, and she said to me, "You got to help me with these kids. They're just going crazy. What's wrong with these kids?" So I knew right away it's not the kids. It had to be her. So I looked in her chart, and there's Uranus hitting something. So what does this mean? Number one, it's very common when these energies hit you to project it outward. The world's getting mean. The world's getting crazy. The world's getting tougher on me. The world's getting confusing. And in fact, that's how it seems. But that ain't real. So what was happening is Uranus was coming up through this woman. Okay, and when this planet comes up through you, unlike any of them, you cannot control the energy. There ain't nothing you can do about it. It's coming, and somebody's turning that rheostat up, and things go. It's kind of like walking under one of those neon bulbs, and the bulb is fritzing out. That's what it's like. I remember one day it was on me, and I was with Liza, and I walked under a transformer on a telephone pole, and it exploded. I remember my first day on the radio. This was 1982. They gave me a show. My first week, he said, "Are you ready?" I said, "No." They said, "You're on." So I started it on to the air. The station blew up. The transformer for the station blew up and didn't get back on for a week. I blew up the station for a week just by bringing Uranian energy with me. So when you have Uranian energy and you can deal with it, that's one thing. But if you're resisting it, oh, you got problems. And most of us try to resist it, or even more stupidly, we try to push it down. And you cannot push this planet down. It goes up on its own. So when it's on you, now what I'm telling you is to find out when Uranus is hitting you. You can't always call me. Just type into Google astrology, where are the planets? And they're going to tell you where Uranus is. And Uranus spends 7 years in a sign, so it's not in any hurry. Okay? So it might be near your Venus. It might be opposite your Venus. It might be square your Venus or squaring your Venus from here. But you're going to start feeling it. Okay, another example. Before just before I started astrology, a couple of years before, I used to play a lot of guitar. And I just average stuff, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, just strumming the guitar. And after a while, when Uranus hit me that one day, or it actually does hit, it's the only planet that hits you on that day, but it also hits you on the months that it's coming. You can feel the months, but it will hit you on that one particular day. I got tired of playing Neil Young, Bob Dylan, and I threw all these songs away. I didn't want to cover other people's music. I wanted to make up my own. That's Uranus. So I got a ketchup bottle. I started singing the blues with the words off the ketchup bottle. And I got a beer bottle. And I started singing the words off the beer bottle. "Oh, Oates, where are you tonight, Oates?" And just singing the words. And everybody in the group is drinking beer and making up words and having fun, being spontaneous. But what was happening was I was allowing Uranus to come through me like a chute and open up new avenues. That's what I was really doing. So I'm going to be teaching you tonight how it feels, what you think, and I'm also going to be teaching you about what's really happening. For example, my father, God bless him, no longer with us, was an old timer from the old country, Capricorn, very rigid. He shopped for his vegetables on Wednesday night. He would get up at 5. Everything was very, very fixed. And my wife and I at the time, both astrologers, we knew for years, here comes Uranus, it's going to enter Capricorn. And he was early Capricorn at 2 degrees. What do you think's going to happen? Here comes Uranus into Capricorn. It's going to stay 7 years. It's going to come in on that day. Well, Uranus didn't come in saying, I've got my sights set on him. Let's hurt him. Let's damage him. But it came and he had a stroke and he had a seizure. First day. We knew it. We knew it was coming. There's nothing we could do about it. As astrologers, we understood. And the reason it caused trouble in his chart, is because he had never allowed it out. Uranus doesn't hit you every day or every other month. It's about every 7 years. It depends on your chart. It's different points. And he had never allowed himself out to express himself, to get a little bit wild, to get a little bit crazy, to go out dancing. He was follow the rule book, color inside the lines. So he went downhill from there, and he ended up dying soon after with renal failure. We knew it was going to be bad because we knew he had no ability to deal with the Uranian energy once somebody's turning up the rheostat. It's that simple. Somebody's turning up the rheostat, and you can't control the rheostat. You cannot control the rheostat on any of these planets. They're done by the universe. They're done by the archetypal energies. They're done by your karma. I cannot explain it to you. But when Uranus comes by, people either come back to you and they say, wow, it was just nuts and crazy chaos. Or they come back and say, oh, it was fabulous. It was the most fun time I ever had. That's very Uranian. So I got this woman, of course, I'm getting lost in my subjects here. I got this woman who I told you I was doing her job, sorry. And she's telling me her kids are getting out of hand. And I'm telling her it's not the kids, it's you. No, it ain't the kids. And she's a Taurus, and you don't argue with Tauruses, do you? Good luck there. I said, I just looked at your chart and Uranus is hitting one of your planets really strong. So I gave her some advice and I started thinking about what's really happening. Uranus is trying to get her to loosen up from inside. And when you're a Taurus, Taurus is not really easy about loosening up. None of your signs are. I said, take your kids out tomorrow and get your hose out. It was summertime, and make a great big mud puddle and jump in it and start throwing mud at each other. And then you're going to get filthy, dirty, and have to clean it up. And so what? And then jump in the mud and slide in the mud and start throwing it. She called me about 2 weeks later. She said, I never had more fun in my life. And it's not because of the mud. It's not because of Uranus. It's because she opened the door to something that was inside screaming to get out. Now, I gave her a way to get it out, go play in the mud. And she had a release. Then all of a sudden, the kids weren't so bad. Well, I continue with my music, and I'm continuing writing songs. I'm continuing reading the words on the side of a tomato box, anything, just making up stuff, ad-libbing. But what that does, that really helps you. And as Marcia can tell you, when you're in a drama class and you learn about being spontaneous, there's nothing better. There's nothing more liberating, because you make up something and everybody else there in the room has to deal with it, and it's real for everybody. And it's just great fun, and it's very spontaneous. So what Uranus is trying to do is to get you out of your doldrums. Your Uranus inside you is trying to wake you up. And I learned that in 1978, because I was just starting, and I was lucky enough to get the book by Stephen Arroyo called Karma and Transformation. And he made me understand that these planets are your planets. That changed everything. Everything I was studying on the planets out there, it's going to come get you in a couple of months, and then it's going to do that thing, and then the planet's over there, and it's going to do that. You can't get a job, or then you're going to get a job. And I just destroyed all my upbringing of stale, rigid astrology, and Arroyo brought us into the humanistic age, which is what he called it. That these planets are yours. So if you're walking around or you're at home and you got a couple weeks going by and you're at work and all of a sudden everything starts to get kind of crazy, it's starting to get frenetic. You need to start to notice, like I do, you need to start to notice the temptation. What does it feel like? And what it really is, it's your insides screaming at you. And your insides are the best of intentions, Rick can tell you. They're trying to tell you straight. But if you've been raised in a house where you can't let anything go, what do you think is going to happen? Now, if you've been raised in this wild and crazy household, it's kind of flippy and kind of fun, and Uranus comes by, you have no trouble with it at all. Go fly a kite for a while. Get a motorcycle. Because you're in touch with that energy. You're in touch with that. And that energy comes up through you like a sprout. And some of them are big sprouts. And sometimes it's 2, 3 sprouts at once. And sometimes there's no sprouts. And that's why I got hooked on this phrase about sprouts. Because it really is like that. These energies come up through you. So when Uranus is on you, the worst thing you can do is push it down. Or so you tell yourself, I'm going crazy, something's wrong. I got to push it down. And if you've got parents that say, you're going goofy, you better push it down, then you're going to believe that stuff. Say, well, I don't feel nuts. I just feel like this new energy. I want to try something. And I always use this real stupid example because goofy, crazy examples are exactly how Uranus works. Uranus doesn't send you to Rome and Paris. It sends you to Timbuktu and southern Wales, these places you never been. How to get here? That's what Uranus does. I always use the analogy of Mrs. Cleaver coming down the steps with her sunglasses on, and she got her saxophone out, and she starts playing away on this saxophone. Because there's this stereotype of one of the most rigid characters ever on TV, Mrs. Cleaver. And she didn't come down today and feel like playing sax today. That's not what happened. What happened was the past 6 months, she's been upstairs, not ready. She's been playing into a pillow, getting ready. And that's one of the key things about Uranus is that when it hits you, you're ready. When it hits you, you're ready. That's why so many people get divorces at that time, because they just had it up to here. And they wait till it's exact, and then you got a real mess because you ain't going to do anything productive once it's exact. You should have had your marriage counseling a long time ago. So that's the force you will feel from Uranus. It's very much like going to a restaurant that you love, and they got the hammers out and they got the saws out, and the saw does this fine, and you can't get the waiter that you want, and you have discord, you have craziness going on. And it's all because the restaurant's doing the right thing, unless they're really off track, where they're trying to renew. And you go back 2 weeks later, has a whole new front, whole new soundtrack, whole new menu. They've been renewed. That's what Uranus does. And if you don't follow your Uranus, you start to crack. It's that simple. Cracking bones, cracking ankle, cracking your head, cracking the road. These things are literal. Uranus will make something anew or crack it. That's what it does. So if you all think about when you were 21, it always hits in 21s. When you were 21 and it hit big time for everybody, and when you were 42, it hit big time again. That's the midlife crisis. And when you were 63 was the third time that it hit. And you can follow up on this video that's about this very subject when you go to my page on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type my name in, and up comes a video that's already rolling. Been watched thousands of times, and it's about the stages of Uranus. So that's how you can know it's Uranus. What do you do when Uranus is there? You loosen up. A lot of people, I have to give them the advice of try something different tomorrow. Try a different road tomorrow. Do something different. Okay? What you don't do is try to believe this BS that running back to the safety of staying in the box is going to work, because it ain't going to work. I'll guarantee it. It will not work. It will blow up on you. So there's a very lively force in you that lies dormant much of the time, and other times everything Uranus does is sudden. Other times it just suddenly pops up, and that's why you're with your friends and you go, "Well, Teresa, where'd you get that idea? You never liked to go dancing before. What'd you do to your hair? You know." And people change their hair and they change their colors and they change their style. Uranus is the part of you that gets fed up with being restricted. How many have experienced this kind of energy? Raise your hand. How many have experienced this type of energy in your life? I'm sure you have. We see it with Susan very much with the change of her art in the past 3 or 4 years, as she's changed beautifully by listening to her Uranus. Okay? Now, the other side, you don't want to go nuts with this energy, okay? This is the same planet that'll put you on the roof with an M16, all right? It can make you really fanatical, all right? But as I say, with these planets, you must be very careful not to blame the outside world. It wasn't the kids causing the lady problems. It was that she'd become too rigid. Any questions about Uranus? Now, you look back in your life and you will see periods that were like this. They were unsettling. They were kind of crazy. And I always tell my clients during this time, it's nothing you can do. Let it be crazy for a while. Let it be unsettled. And then you Tauruses can come in later and pack mud around it later on. You can pack the mud around it and put it back in the ground. Okay? Because then our nature is to want to solidify things, make things regular again, make things predictable again. And Uranus can't stand those things. Okay. I was also thinking about some of our comedians that have really powerful Uranuses. And you can just tell. Jerry Lewis, bleh, the one who just died, Robin Williams. Ooh, how quick he was. How quick. Jonathan Winters. These are Uranian people. They go really fast. Peter Sellers, they're just able to react real fast. Okay?
I wonder if Jim Carrey has.
Jim Carrey, yes. Yeah, exactly.
So...
He was the other one I was trying to think of. He's exactly one of them, where they just go, blah, 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 stuff just pours out of them. Right. Now, those are extremes. The other one who I think beautiful energy was Curly. Curly had the beautiful Three Stooges energy. You know, he walked backwards like, those are very Uranian energies. I don't know what to do with this extra energy, so I'll just go, put it in your face. That's Uranus. It's a beautiful energy to study and the wrong energy to repress. Go back through your lives, look when Uranus hits you, and you will see this dynamic at play. The next planet I want to move to is Saturn. Talk about different. Saturn. Oh, people even say it. Rick, Saturn. Oh. The best planet in the zodiac is Saturn by far. Because if Saturn weren't here, everything would just fall apart. So Saturn is responsible for holding everything together. And remember, most of the years, thousands of years, with astrological knowledge, there was no Saturn. I'm sorry, there was no planet beyond Saturn. Jupiter, Saturn. The rings around it, that's it. It's as far as the eye can see. Interesting phrase. As far as the eye can see, Saturn. Saturn's job is to keep things running, keep things moving. It's very conventional. And like I told you many times, and this was a real insight for me, the real key to Saturn is making sure. You will never in your life meet a Capricorn that does not have one of the three following: duty, responsibility, and making sure. Whenever you leave anybody's Capricorn house, well, be careful driving. Well, be careful now. Now, be careful now. Now, be careful. Well, after a while, you can be careful yourself to where your veins clog up. You know, it's just, it can be ridiculous. Saturn is a very important planet. When it's on you, I have Sagittarians come to see me and they will say, Rick, I got to talk to you. And I'll say, don't even tell me it's Saturn. Call me on the phone. Rick, what the hell's going on? And I know it's Saturn because Sagittarius cannot deal with Saturn. Because Sag is all about, let it go, do your thing. Everything's unlimited. Saturn's the opposite. And boy, Saturn gets, Claudia's having a good time laughing. Well, I guess my Uranus is showing.
Hey, Rick,
Yeah.
Saturn was Jupiter's father.
Oh my God, what was he drinking that night? Oh,
That's why the Sag can't handle Dad.
he had a baby and it came out of Sag. Oh my God. And there's so much tension in the zodiac at the Sag Capricorn border because one's really control, one isn't. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. That's wonderful. Okay. So when Saturn is on you, unlike this poor Sagittarian, you will get more job responsibility. You will almost certainly start feeling older, feeling worse, feeling crooked, cranky, your elbows and knees. Almost certainly. And this is no planet to fool with. If you have teeth problems and Saturn's around, go right to the dentist that day. It can be very serious because Saturn's job is to coalesce things, is to bring things together. And this is going to be a frightening real statement for you. The problem with Saturn is it forms what you've been thinking. It sets into form all your own restrictive thoughts. It's not out there doing it to you. oh, I better not do this because the neighbors might see me. What are they going to think of this? And boy, these guys over here, what are they going to think of that guy's over here? And all that stuff adds up and it crystallizes, it calcifies. That's what Saturn does. And that's why Saturn is so common for heart attacks, blockage type illnesses. But there's a very good side to Saturn too, and it's not talked about enough. One of the common feelings when it's around you is I got to do more work. I got to start working 2 hours every evening extra. I'm making less money. The car's breaking down. Saturn is about real life. It's about real life. How am I going to get through real life? How am I going to pay the bills? Yeah. And you watch this planet with Sagittarius, it will drive them nuts. And not just tell them, look at Saturn. You got to work with the reality part of your life. Goodbye. In other words, I'm a Capricorn. I deal with it all day long. You go deal with it for a while. Marcia knows what I mean. She's a Capricorn. Saturn's a tough planet. It's also a beautiful planet. If you have friends with a lot of Capricorn in them, they're very stylish. I don't mean clothes. They got a character about them that is very Cary Grant like. It's very
Classy.
professional. It's very classy. Very classy. But anyhow, so what do you do when Saturn's on you? First of all, it's a message that inside yourself. Remember, what does Capricorn do? Make sure, right? When does Saturn get activated in your chart? When it looks around inside and sees, hey, things are not in order here. I'm not real happy with how things are going. And I want to work on this. And I want to go play golf and say, oh, no golf. Get here and fix this stuff. That's what happens when Saturn's there. It stops you because it's not an external Saturn. It's your own internal Saturn that stops you. The last 3 times we played golf, we forgot to fix the gutters. No more. I want the gutters fixed. Saturn will bitch at you. It will become a noose around the neck. Saturn's not trying to bum you out. Saturn's trying to get you to do the stuff in the order so that your life will work the way that you think you want it to work. That's what it does. It's an external. Externally, it feels like your boss is getting meaner. The government's getting worse. There's less money. That's how it feels. But really, what's happening, in other words, I really would have benefited greatly by being Van Gogh's astrologer when he cut off his ear. Because I'll guarantee you, if I were working with him 2-3 months before he did, I would see this energy coming. And I'll guarantee you the reason he did it was because he was blocked off from source. And there's nothing worse to an artist or a writer or a painter than they can't get their source. They're blocked off from it. This must be something I did, but whatever. So chops his ear off. I'll guarantee you that the odds are very high if he had a good astrologer at that time explaining to him that he needed to put the paints to the side for a while and go fix his leaky gutters, go fix his whatever in his real life, then coming back to it, that leaves. So when Saturn's around you, it's very common that you feel restricted, you feel that you're cut off from source, you're cut off from divine spirit, you feel more pessimistic than optimistic. So The answer to dealing with the Saturn transit is grow up, face the music, deal with what's real. Don't try to just shake it off because it will not work. And the reason it won't work is because you won't let it happen. That's why. It's not the Saturn out there. You see, think Saturn's out there going, oh, no, no, aisle number 44. Oh, Rick's goofing around. I'm going to stop that guy. I just start thinking. This is the beautiful thing about watching the archetypal energies. We don't know how they're working, but something does. Something wants Rick to become more Saturnian. And that something is getting in touch with the flow of the universe. That's what it is. Now, if Saturn and Uranus both come at the same time, which is not uncommon, then you got to deal with both of them. And it's not so, because one wants to go dancing and one wants to stay at home and fix that table. So that's when you get several at once is when you really need an astrologer, a good one, because they can divide it up into time slots. They can see what the two planets have in common. And you can work at a higher degree of looking at yourself to fix what's wrong. Because what are these things doing inside? They're trying to make you more intense. They're trying to make you more meaningful, more brave, more spiritual, more loving, more down to earth, more jovial, more risk taking, all the good human qualities that you think about. But when you're not an astrologer and your map is folded up and it's under your seat, what are you going to do? The only thing you can do is listen to everybody else. And boy, is that the wrong idea. You can't listen to everybody else. Look where they got listening to themselves. That's why knowing your chart, you don't have to be a fanatic, but knowing your chart, knowing your energies, knowing how they're going to flex, understanding how these planets are working on a global level now, which is unheard of what's going on now. That's why those things can really benefit you. Okay, the next planet I'm going to get into. Wow, the last two are really weird ones. Neptune. That's Sean waving his hand because Neptune is the ruling planet of Pisces, which it is. Neptune is my favorite planet, and it's a total pain in the you-know-what. But it's a very tough planet to understand. It is not for most people. It's very vague. It's very mysterious. It's very unpredictable. You can't grab it. You ever been with a Pisces person? You ever been with a Pisces person and you look over at them and you reach inside and there ain't nobody there? That's what I'm telling you. You reach inside. Sean, you can beat me up if you want. That's okay. You reach inside Sean and other Pisces and there's nobody there. Now, you know that's nonsense. What does that mean? Because certainly he's there, but he ain't there. Pisces are masters at getting rid of themselves because that's when everything opens up to the oneness. That's why they have a nature known to be selfless. And that's why they get so damn confused. Do they support themselves? Do they not? Do I take a drink? Do I not? So it's a very confusing sign to be if you are one. But Neptune, you'll start noticing you're walking around and you just don't care. What the hell? I just don't care. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. And it's very common they go to drink, and it's very common they go to affairs. Two bad choices. a good reaction to Neptune is you had enough of the Earth, you've had enough of the marketplace, and you go away to an ashram for 3 years, 4 or 5 years. Look what Leonard Cohen did in his later years, in his 60s. He'd been going to the ashram off and on all his life, but in his later years, he just got tired of the whole game. Somebody stole all his millions. His secretary took all his millions. And he decided just let it all go. And he went to his ashram with his guru in Southern California, and they did a lot of Buddhist work for several years. And he really devoted himself to it like a good, strong Virgo does. And he came out of it very purified. He came out of it purified. This is very rare. This is what Neptune wants. Neptune's not going to goof around with you. Neptune could care less how many cars are in your garage or when your next operation is. It doesn't care about anything earthly. It only cares about you and your relationship to whatever you want to call it. You can see in this show, I don't care what you say about this show is governed by Neptune. Even though I'm a double Capricorn with a very strong Uranus, this show, in my perception, is governed by Neptune. Because I understand that eventually, when it all comes down to, we need to bow down. We need to, not in an obedience sense, we need to bow to our higher power, not to obey and not be wrong, but because he knows what's happening. He understands. He's got a handle on it. So Neptune is very difficult to deal with. One of the reasons why is it makes you really unhappy. You're really unhappy with the wife, unhappy with the husband, unhappy with the sex, unhappy with the job. So when you get that dismayed, you start thinking there are problems out there. And when you look for the problem out there, you're going to find the problem out there. But it's not true. You all got strong Neptunes, or you wouldn't have been led to this program. Because I won't let you get away with ignoring Neptune. I just won't let it happen. Because I know too much about where it's really at. So, when you learn that it's not out there, my wife can cook the greatest meal tomorrow. Still, I'm unhappy. The lack is inside. The lack is inside. The Neptune is trying to reach you to open the heart. I don't know. You guys got your different ways of talking about it. The Neptune wants you to open your heart. And like I talked with, I think it was Susan last week, about the conduit opening up between you and your source, the conduit that makes you more masterful, makes you more intuitive. That's when Neptune's on you. You know, I haven't looked at this yet, and I've been meaning to, because I was thinking about this. In 73, before I was an astrologer, I was walking down the street one day in Morgantown. I was a senior. I was just walking down the street. It was a nice day. And I got to a certain point by the Mountaineer Stadium, and I just got filled with this blissful, isn't this just fantastic? Now, I was thinking it was the age I was in. It was all the young hippies all revolting from all this stuff. whatever it was, I just knew that I was in touch with the blissful energy, which is really all around us all the time. And I made myself stop and take it in. Feel it. What does it feel like? Why does it go away? What do you want to do with it? How do you categorize it, etc.? So Neptune, it can be very confusing. Number one, if you start getting urges to leave the house, to leave the wife, to leave the husband, to leave the family, you're probably on the wrong track with Neptune. If you get urges to stop by the pop shop 4 times a day, you definitely got problems. You got problems. And the problem is inside, not outside. And the problem inside is, yes, there's actually, I'm not going to get too far with this because I know you all have your own way. There's actually a part of us in the inside that knows the way back to God. I don't know how else to say this. John knows what I mean. There's actually a part of us that knows that you're getting too far from it and knows how to get you back on track. And that's the one that brings a friend back to you. You haven't seen him in 40 years. You go, wow, it's so good to see you. Or brings a book that you read 30 years ago that turns you on spiritually. Those are not coincidences. So Neptune is very much, in my opinion, Neptune is the Holy Spirit. Or some such. So there you go with it. It comes to you, it's very confusing. And the reason it's confusing is you will not support any more gains on the physical plane. And it looks like it is stopping you. And it's not. It's you don't want it because you know it leads you nowhere. That's why. I told you tonight would be good. It's good. It's good stuff. So the Neptune shoot comes up, and all you want to do is go swimming. And all Pisces want to do is go swimming. Why? They all want to go swimming. Why? Because it's unbounded. There aren't any boundaries. Please don't drown. I'm not going to drown. I'm going to enjoy it. Okay. Now, that leaves us with the fun planet last. I do think I'll stop with Pluto and get a smile out of Erica. Erica, no, we don't want to name a planet Erica. No, she's fine right there. We want to name a planet Pluto. Okay. Now listen, these people that are trying to tell you that there is no more Pluto, okay, just go and just go on about your day, okay? Because in their rigid definition of planets, maybe they don't want Pluto, but astrologically, she's really heavy duty, okay, or he, whatever it is. Rick, is he or she?
Pluto's he.
Pluto's he, okay. All right. You come home and everything seems like a film noir film. Everything's getting darker. You're starting to feel separate from everybody. You're starting not to care. You're starting to feel like this job sucks. My life ain't adding up to nothing. I want some meaning in my life. Pluto doesn't mess around. I can't take it anymore. Every time I go in the basement, I see a mess, but I can't deal with it. So I walk back up. I go back downstairs. The mess is bigger. I can't deal with it. And when Pluto finally hits, you go downstairs and you just scream. You just can't take it anymore. And everything's got to go. And I'm talking about sweeping changes. And I have seen so many hundreds of clients that actually start into their Pluto transit by cleaning out the basement. It's unbelievable. I want this stuff out of here. I want to get that. You missed that little thing there. Get that out of there. Okay, what's happening here is Pluto is a planet of tremendous dedication to God. Tremendous dedication to purity. Pluto does want any more junk cleaning around. You brought this junk in here. Get the junk out. Pluto's harsh. And it's very much a heart thing. The house, what you do to a house is very much a heart thing. It's just the same thing as you do to your heart. And the reason they want to clear the basement out is they want all the junk out. I want all the junk. I see you, get out. I don't care how you got in here, just get out. And I'm talking about many, many people have told me this, and they get to the point where there's nothing left. Maybe half of a pipe that's stuck to the wall, I mean, it's dramatic because and you get around these people and you realize they're not fooling around. That's when Pluto's there. And Pluto is so intense. Pluto says it's inside yourself. Okay, you could let yourself live to get more and more dark and more clogged up, or you could just die, whatever. I have a friend that Pluto got to him, and the house was so bad. And he drove his car off the road and died. Because he was facing an ever mounting pressure of you've got to clean up all this stuff. And inside, that's what he was screaming. But also inside, no judgment, inside, he knew it was just a mountain to climb. And he did what he needed to do to leave this domain. So it's not always that dramatic, but oftentimes it is. Now, Pluto's on you when you start getting some nasty stuff at work, like people really working behind your back and stabbing you, and it's really getting ugly. And I mean, they're really affecting your future. Fortunately, I've seen many Pluto times with clients where they get cysts, or they even get cancer, or they get different types of things. Pluto is all about, I'm going to release the toxins from inside. That's what it's doing. He's the garbage man of the zodiac. He's releasing toxins from inside. Well, sometimes those toxins are coming out so furiously in such volume that it can kind of make you sick because you have to kind of purge for a while. But I wanted to say to you, I've seen many, many, many times where Pluto's on you and you're doing your work. This is what matters. You're doing your work. What matters is you doing your work or aren't you? Pluto knows because it's your Pluto. And if you're doing your work, the cancer ends up being benign. The cyst ends up being benign. The blackheads go away. The vomiting goes away. I mean, all these things going on in your life. People dropping their toothbrush in the toilet. People dropping their cell phone in the toilet. It's just unbelievable. Massive plumbing work has to be done on the house. Plutonian. If you're doing your work, it becomes manageable. If you're not, you look out. If you're not doing your work, it's going to drive a Mack truck into your lane, and it ain't the Mack truck driving it. It's you, because Pluto will get you to a point. It will get you to a point in your evolution where it will say to you, kind of like, I can make no more excuses for you. You're either going to have to do your work or get out of here. And that's why Pluto has such a negative image when it gets really intense. It will kill you. It will get rid of you because it doesn't want you clogging up evolution for everybody else. There's no judgment here. A lot of Pluto happens because of karmic situations, a family lineage. There's a lot of different kind of stuff. So when Pluto's on you, you will know it. It's very common to feel dark and hopeless. It's also very common that help will come to you out of nowhere, miraculously, and help you. It's a beautiful planet. But you got to stop being afraid of it. That might take years. I'm sure Rick knows what I mean. Pluto is the planet inside it. We're not going to get to Eris yet because Eris is just too weird, different. Pluto is the party that says, look, this is how life is. You want it to be more meaningful? You need to become more courageous. You want to be more courageous? I will help you. You don't want to be more courageous? Okay, give me a shovel and we'll start to bury you. Simple. Now, you see these all the time when you see a teenager who's getting near suicidal because of a breakup with a boyfriend. You see this with people when Pluto's on you, and Neptune especially. They start to lose their home. They lose their New York Stock Exchange job. They lose their cars. The kids won't talk to them anymore. When everything just goes to pot, things go to pot, if that's the right word, when you stop doing the inner work. There's no surprise. There's nobody out there trying to get you. There's no planet trying to hurt you. When you stop doing the inner work, and the inner work really means two things: trying and asking for assistance. Yesterday, I saw a beautiful thing on Facebook written by Claudia, talking about the same thing. And she talked very much about the same thing. But as long as I'm trying and I'm looking up for help, I have no reason to fear anything. Those are the two requirements. It's not that there's some book somewhere that says these are the requirements. It's just the nature of the way things are. So are the shoots. So are the results if you try to push them down. So are the results if you try to pull that shoot up faster. So deep inside, you have a very passionate part of you that wants to be very meaningful. I told you the story, this guy. I'll tell it again because it's so outrageous. This gay man. Pluto entered Capricorn on January 25th, 2008. Pluto entered Capricorn January 25th, 2008, 9:30 at night on a Friday. That's the night it changed signs. After 15 years in Sag, that's the night it went into Capricorn. all kind of things happened then and have been happening ever since. And as we're going now to Pluto leaving Capricorn, going into Aquarius back and forth. But this guy came to me and he, at the time, was losing all of his friends to AIDS. And he was a very rich accountant. And I told him about that night in January of 2008. This was like March. He was with me in March. He says, you know what? He says, I got my time journal right here. He says, I'm going to go back. And he went back to 9:30 on that Friday night. And he was in an accountant's meeting at Friday night, 9:30. Who's in an accountant meeting at 9:30 at night? And I told everybody in my group, I quit. I just can't take this anymore. I don't care how many beans you want to count. I've got to do something. My friends are dying. I've got to do something more meaningful. He quit at that moment. I saw other things happen at that exact moment. They don't always work at the exact moment with Pluto. But you saw what was happening is that thing, that iceberg just kept trying to emerge. So come up, had to come up through the ice. It finally broke through. And all the good things that happened afterward. So one of the things you'll see as an astrologer, then I'll move on to questions here. A lot of times people come to me wanting to know, hey, I got this new impulse. Am I crazy? No. A lot of times I just say, do it. I don't even want to hear what impulse is. Just do it. Go do it. Do it. Go do it. And man, they get better off in so many ways because they stop scrunching down the real self that wants out. So that's what I had to say about those planets. I did want to mention a couple other little things, which I thought were really interesting. You might find this interesting. I sure do. I know people like sun sign generalities, and I do too, when they're true. I don't know why. Who are the two signs of the zodiac that when you call them and talk for a while, you see them hang out with them, they will never call you back? They just will not pick up the phone to call you. No, I'm not talking about every one of that sign, but in general, these two signs will not call you. You got to call them. Then they're fine. They're not going to do it. Sagittarius and Taurus. Sagittarius and Taurus. Now, maybe you know Tauruses and Sags that do call you, but it's very rare. You think about the Sagittarius you know in your life and the Tauruses that you know in your life, and you see what I mean. They don't call you.
That's not true.
Okay. Which sign are you debating?
Taurus.
Okay. How many Tauruses are you basing your decision on?
What do you mean with that?
How many Tauruses are you using to get your opinion?
I'm myself my Taurus, and I always call.
I'm not talking about if you know one person or you know two persons. I'm talking about if you know 300 or 400. It is true if you follow it, but if you're only basing your decision on one Taurus or one Sag, then it's no basis for a sane comparison.
I just know a Virgo. She never calls.
Well, that can be many reasons, but I'm just giving you my knowledge. You could throw it in the garbage, but it's something I've noticed very consistently. It does not mean every Sag. It does not mean every Taurus, but I've had a load of it. They just won't. It's not because they're unfriendly. They just won't.
Honey.
Rita, do you have any idea why?
I have opinions. Why? Sag Sag is a very unusual sign that I have much to learn about. Sag is really, really into the current fun, living in the moment, having fun. And it's a wonderful quality that Sag has. And that's why they will not call me. When I call them, they're thrilled after 12 years. But they just don't think about calling you because they're so much into the flow of the fun of the moment. That's what I think, and I don't know. The Tauruses, I don't know. I don't really know why, other than the fact that they're very settled and they're almost always settled and content. I'm settled and I'm content. I don't need to call anybody. Now, that's what I found, Erica. It doesn't mean that those two signs are unfriendly. It just means what I've told you tonight, because I noticed a pattern and I wanted to point it out. Now, Renate, how many Sagittarius and Tauruses are you talking about?
I know a lot of Sagittarius
Uh-huh.
because my son is in the ninth house, and maybe that's the reason. I don't know. And they call, and I'm living in a house here with a Sag. She is calling all the time.
You said something about something in the ninth house?
I have my sun and Uranus in the ninth
Oh,
house.
you mean your son is in the ninth house?
Yeah.
We're not talking about you. We're talking about other people. And also, when your sun is next to Uranus, you're very Aquarian, which is bound to call other people.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you know that's Tauruses or Sagittarius that will return your calls? I'm not talking about you left a message and they didn't call back. I'm talking about you haven't seen him in a while. Hey, let's call my buddy every now and then, see how he's doing.
I don't know.
Think about it. That's all I'm saying. Give it some thought. Give it some thought. But I cannot say that about the other 10 signs, but it's something I have come up with recently. Now, at this point, we have some time left. If you'd like to talk about what we talked about, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, these planets coming up through you, you probably know relatives or friends that are going through some of these definitions that you heard. And I'm telling you, the key to dealing with these energies is to realize the energy's not out there. It's in them and it wants out. It's in them and they want out. And do they have rules about keeping it in? Do they have rules that it's okay to let it out? Yes, Susan.
Question, and as a Sag, I do understand why Sages probably don't call back very often. Most of the Sages I know are like me in that they just get too involved in what they're doing and lose
Exactly. It's not an unfriendly thing. That's right.
No. And the Tauruses I know tend to be like hobbits and pull the covers over their head, and so you don't hear from them very often either.
Yeah, it's true. I have to run, Diana. So glad to have you back. Come back anytime. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, honey. Bye-bye. Susan, I'm agreeing with you totally on both things.
But the question is, what about a square to a midheaven? I mean, it's not a planet.
Are you talking about a natal square or transiting?
A transiting Saturn.
Okay.
Squaring directly a midheaven.
All right, that's a very good question.
What I have at the moment.
What sign is on the midheaven?
Sagittarius.
Oh.
So you've got a transiting Saturn hitting a midheaven with Sag. Okay.
That Saturn is 1 degree of Pisces right now.
Okay, well, let me put it to you this way. You got a Sag midheaven, a Gemini nadir.
Yep.
Okay. What does that axis, Rick, I'll be with you in a moment. What does that axis represent to you?
Fun.
No. That's true. But what is that axis? If you were to talk about everybody in the world, what is the midheaven to everybody? What is the
Oh,
nadir to everybody?
okay. The outer world and the inner world, I guess.
That's very
Career,
good.
family.
That's a very good answer. A very tough question. Yeah, one is my work environment, going out into the world, how I'm seen in the world. One is my lineage, my background, etc. Well, what do you think's happening when Saturn squares it?
Could be issues with both, but it sounds like if it's Saturn, it's making sure on both.
Yeah, yes. But moreover, what I want to point out to you, let's not get caught in the trap of pre Stephen Arroyo here. The planets are not coming by to hurt you. The planets coming by, when planets come by, they're very much like inspectors.
Right.
And Saturn is saying, well, I'm not sure what you've been doing here, and well, what have you been doing up here? And well, I know you want to do what you do. And usually, if you make the midheaven happy, it makes the nadir unhappy,
Oh.
and vice versa. So, one of the nice things about a Saturn square or anything square to an angle like that is you get to a fulcrum point. You get to a point where I'm not sure what I've done, but things are kind of balancing out lately. Lately, my home life and my work life are kind of balancing out. And that's what you want to see. And that's a Saturn doing its job properly.
Oh.
That's what you see. The nadir is what do I got to do to make myself feel better, feel safer, feel saner? And the midheaven is, I don't care how you feel. What are you doing out in the world? Are you succeeding? And when a planet squares it, it's symbolic of the fulcrum. You're getting that
So have
seesaw.
to do with balance.
Yeah, a seesaw is getting balanced. That's exactly right.
Okay.
So it's very common. I've seen it a lot. Yeah, very good question. Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, with all the Pisces focus around Neptune, and also with Dr. John's mystical background, I was curious what folks thought about looking at that soul stirring emotional energy of Neptune, trying to giving energy to understanding the ideal versus illusions. Because I think Neptune moves us to come up with an ideal understanding of what we think and believe, and then we run up against illusions.
Oh, yeah, I think that's right.
And it kind of creates a lot of internal quandary, discovery.
When you see a cat outside in the yard and a cat's hiding behind a tree that's 1/2 inch thick,
yeah,
and it thinks you can't see them, okay? It thinks you can't see them. It's convinced that you can't, and you know full well the cat's there. That's definitely a Neptune transit. In other words, with all these things, and I think one of the things I came up with tonight, I think that is very good, is seeing the planets as inspectors. I think that's really a good thing to see.
Do you think Neptune might expose where our ideals are a little bit illusory or hard to attain, or that
Neptune is very difficult to talk about. Neptune is, if I strip myself naked and stand before you, Lord, I'm not ashamed. Not like the Bible says, they came before the Lord and they were naked and they were embarrassed. Neptune is, I'm going to strip myself naked and show you who I am because I got nothing to hide. And I'm pure like you say I am. The illusion part comes in when the person doesn't want to accept the truth of the real Neptune part. For example, a man maybe having an affair with his wife, and he may have himself completely convinced it's her fault. He's got all these reasons. So he goes and has 2 affairs on the side, and he thinks he's getting away with this. And the wife's sitting at home talking to her best friend. She knows all about it. So it's very, very common, the alliance of Neptune with scandals.
With what?
Scandals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neptune and scandals go one-on-one together.
Addictions come in there too.
What is an addiction other than another illusion? That's exactly right.
Right.
Yeah, you fool yourself. When you're honest with yourself about Pluto, what happens to you? When you're honest with yourself regarding your Pluto energy, what happens to you?
You get strength and power.
That's exactly right. You get power and courage. When you're honest with yourself about Saturn, what happens to you?
You
can
toe
have
the mark.
real life.
Yeah, you toe the mark. You may not have to lift weights for the rest of your life. Yeah, but you do the work and the sweat that you got to get it done. What happens to you when you're honest with your Neptune?
God.
What?
Oh, you see through the illusions.
Right.
You see truth through the lies.
And you see through the fact that there are no illusions. Illusions aren't real, which is why they're illusions. Did you have something to say, Sean?
Yeah, I was gonna say Neptune is the one that pretty much shake it all up and make you recognize exactly what you're saying. Like the planets are inside it. This whole energy is coming in. That's what it does.
That's why ultimately Neptune is a very beautiful planet. It's very hard because it's so confusing and anti-worldly. But ultimately, when you get on that cliff and you take all your clothes off in front of God and you dive into the water, that is a very Neptunian picture right there.
Like what the detachments, it make you detach from all the illusions, even though they said Neptune.
Detachment, yes, but it's the trusting into the dive itself. The trusting. See, so many people are in trouble because they believe these other things are going to satisfy them. A new car, a skinnier wife, more money. These things are going to make me happy. Neptune sees through all that. It knows that you can't. That's what Jesus was telling us. That's why that's the very basis of Neptune. Yes.
A friend just got Neptune on her sun now, and she becomes
who does?
A friend of mine. She just Neptune got on her sun.
Okay. Well, she's a Pisces, and I've got Saturn's been killing me on my node. She's going to go through a spiritual crisis. Now, that can be a small C crisis, that can be a big C crisis. But when Neptune's on your sun, she can no longer avoid her identifying with her spiritual self. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and she is very much Saturn. She has a strong Saturn.
It's not good.
Yeah. To the car, to the money, to the job.
No. That ain't gonna work. No, that's exact opposite. You know why? You know the reason why is Saturn is an example of no faith. And Neptune is all about having faith.
Yeah.
And that's why it's tough. Saturnian people have very much difficulty with Neptune, and that's why they don't trust or have faith. That's 2 of the same troubles that Virgo has, trust and faith. Because they got this impression, which we understand, that if it's going to be right, then you have to fix it. See, that's got its place. But with with Neptune and with Christ, it's not about you fixing it. It's about you stepping aside, like Sean says, getting out of your own way and letting him fix it.
Saturn is the structure of the world, but Neptune is all about the spiritual bypass to another world.
Exactly right. And what have we been talking about all night long? We've been talking about these mysterious shoots that come up through us, and they come up through our heart, and we don't know why. Maybe Sigmund would know why better. I don't know. But it's attached to our karma. It's attached to our it's where we are attached to the greater love planet. It's where we are attached to the greater love plant. Picture a big love plant at the center of the universe. And we're all attached to it somewhere. And some of us have trouble. And some of us work at making it better. Some of us don't know what's going on. We just think we're being stepped on. But there's only one truism in astrology, is no matter what you're looking at, it's a replacement for you going back home. And all urges are to go back home, where you started. So with that, I must say good night before I get in big trouble.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say one thing about the shoots.
Yeah.
When I think about that, about the sprouts coming up, a sprout doesn't come from nowhere. It has to come from a seed or a bulb or growing from other roots. So it's already there. It's just that that's when it comes out, and what kind of growing medium you give it, and whether or not you
that's
are
a very good point.
fertilizing it or not, as to what health it's going to have.
Well, that's a very good point, and it's just like Erica to open up a whole new can of worms as I'm closing off the show. I love you, honey.
Love you too.
Love you all.
Love you all.
We'll talk about that next week.
Many blessings, all.
You too.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.